next tutorial. We are going over animation this time. It is a fine, albeit quite hot afternoon here in Japan. I hope the weather is nice where you are as well. So let's jump right into it. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to our hierarchy, click on player, click on our animation window. We now have a create button here. I'm going to click create, and I want to make sure that to click on assets up here and save it into our animation folder, just so we have everything organized. I'm going to name it player_idle. It's a very good idea to get into good naming conventions, so we're going to name the object underscore the animation that it's going to perform, and I'm going to click save. So now you see a timeline has come up here. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to project art player folder, and I'm going to look at my idle. If it's not already open, I'm going to click this little arrow to open it. I'm going to click on the first frame here, the first cell, I guess, and then I'm going to hold shift and click on the last frame of idle. And with all of these selected, I'm going to drag it right down into our timeline and release. Now you can see our player is kind of bouncing up and down there. He's bouncing pretty fast. So we're going to do one thing here real quick. If you can't see these samples right here, you're going to go over to this set of dots down here, the bottom set, and click on show sample rate. Should bring that right up. Now samples are your frames that it's going to show per second. So right now it's playing at 60 frames per second. I'm going to change this to a little bit lower because I don't want him to move so fast. Now it is a very good idea to get into the habit of having all of your music, all of your animation, your programming, etc. use the same rate or multiples of the same rate. Same with your art. So in this case, we're going to use multiples of 8 in this course. So I'm going to put it down to 24. Hit enter, see how that looks. If I press play right here, all right, he's kind of bobbing up and down. I like that. I might even try 16. Let's see. Yeah, I like that. We don't want him to be too active while he's just standing there. I'm going to click play to stop that right here. Now, one thing I realized I did before the class is I changed all of our platforms here to have in our inspector sprite render additional settings to have an order and layer of 100, so they'll appear in front of the player. So I'd like you to go ahead and in your hierarchy, click and then hold down Control and click on every platform you have, and then go to Inspector Sprite Renderer and type in 100. So they're going to appear kind of in front of our player. We want him to feel like he's walking in the grass, not walking in front of it. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to click back on our player. I'm going to go back into our animation window, and this time on the player idle drop down arrow, I'm going to click create new clip. I'm going to go back to make sure I'm in animation. I already am. That's good. So I'm going to erase new animation. I'm going to go player_run. Again, the item underscore the animation, and I'm going to click save. All right. So now we need to create a run animation. So real quick, you might have already noticed that we have an animator here. It automatically added an animator component, and we will be using that later. So let's just go ahead and go up to Project Player, look at our running picture right here. Now if you'll notice, again, we only have one picture. We need to cut up into multiples. So in our inspector, I'm going to go to Sprite Mode, and I'm going to go to Multiple. And then I'm going to go to Sprite Editor, apply, and you're going to go to Slice, and then Automatic, and hit Slice. Real quick thing I want to talk about. If I click on this, I can see several pieces of information. The X and Y value is where the animation starts, or where the picture starts. The W is the width, and the H is the height. It is good practice to make all of your cells the same width and height so that the animations will look better. If you click through, you're going to see different, I think the first few are going to be 23 by 24, and the biggest one is 25 by 24. So before this class, I went ahead and did this, so I don't take up your time. Go ahead and click on each of these and change the width to 25 and the height to 24, so they're all the same. It'll make your animations look a little smoother in the end. With that done, I'm going to click Apply, and then I'm going to hit the X, and we're going to be right back out here. The difference now is if I open up Run, if I click this little arrow over here, it's going to bring up all of our running items there. So on the first one, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to scroll down and hold Shift, click on the last one, and drag it on in here. Now if I press play in the animation window, oh no, he's running, but he's small. If you remember before, we changed the pixels per unit of the artwork. So in the main running artwork, I'm going to go down to the inspector, and where it says pixels per unit, I'm going to change that to 20, the same as the other one. And then I'm going to click into the main screen, click apply. Okay, now I'm going to click back on our player, go down to our animation window, and if you see, he's now running pretty good. The only issue is he's running a little fast, a little too much for my taste, so I'm going to go ahead and change his samples to a different multiple of 8, let's say 40. It's still pretty fast. I'm going to try 32 even. That looks pretty good to me for now, so I'm going to scroll back out a little bit here. I'm going to play to stop that. Now I mentioned before we will be using the animator. Right now your animator window is probably not open, so we're going to go to Window, Animation, and then Animator. And it's going to bring open an animator window. I recommend having it in the same view as the same tab, I suppose, as Scene, Game, and then now Animator, because we're working with a bigger map here, so we want a lot of space to work with. Now, looking at this, this might look a little scary. Green and red we don't have to worry about so much. The orange is very important. It is the default state. It is the first animation that will start playing. If I right-click on another item, for example, player run, and click select default state, it'll become run. But of course, idle is a better default state, so I'm going to keep it as its default state. Now there are lots of ways to control the animator. We can control it directly through code, we can control it through the parameters here, or we can do a combination of both. If you have a bunch of animations, you're probably going to want to control it purely through code. For less animations, it's good to make as much use of Unity's editor, animation editor as we can. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to click over on animator window, I'm going to click on parameters, I'm going to click plus. We have 4 different types here. Float is a decimal number, an int is a whole number, 0, 1, 2, 3. A boolean, or a bool, is a true or false statement. That's what we're going to use here. Click that. And we're going to name it is running. Capital I, capital R. And then we can click anywhere in here, and it's going to save that for us. So now we need to tell Unity when to transfer to different animations. So I'm going to right-click on idle, and I'm going to click on Make Transition. I'm going to drag this down to Player Run, and click. So now we have something going from idle to run. I'm going to click on the transition line itself. On Has Exit Time, I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to open up the settings. I'm going to change fixed duration, and I'm going to turn everything to 0 here. And let's just drag all of these in this timeline just back as far as we can. It doesn't matter so much, but there we go. Then we're going to go to the bottom here, down to conditions. Right now it says list is empty. You also might notice we have a lot of yellow little warnings here. I'm going to click clear on those. We don't care about those. Basically, you need either an exit time or you need a condition to actually allow the animation to run. So I'm going to click plus under conditions, and it's going to default with the first condition, which is running, and true, which is actually what we want. So is running true, correct? So anytime the is running variable is true, we're going to go back. We're going to go to our player run. Then we're going to right click on player run, make transition, go back to idle, click on the transition line. We're going to do all the same things. We're going to remove exit time. We're going to remove fixed duration, turn everything to 0, because we don't really care too much about a lot of this stuff. We might go over this a little bit later, what all these other options are, but for now we don't need them. Under our condition, I'm going to click plus, and this time I'm going to change is running to false, so when we're not running. Okay, and we've set up everything in our animator that we need to set up. The only issue now is the game needs to know if it's running or not. So we're going to go into our player movement code, movement right. Again, this actually isn't necessary. If you see these have kind of grayed out, it means it's not necessary. But for everyone at home, it's a good visual representation of what's going on. So this item.getComponent, this time we're going to say animator, because remember we have that new animator component in our inspector. Dot set bool. Set means to assign it a value. Bool is a boolean. And remember we created the is running boolean. So this requires two parameters. The first is the name, and the second is the value to set it to. So we're going to say quotation. Quotation is running. This has to be the exact same as your parameter from before, comma, true. Then we'll finish off with a semicolon. So anytime we are running right, this is going to be true. I'm going to highlight this, Control C, go down to movement left, add another one, Control V. So if we're running left or right, we want our running animation to play. But if we're not running left or right, we need to go back to our idle state. So I'm going to make, above jumping here, I'm going to make a new little section, and I'm going to call it not running. And we're going to say if input.get axis horizontal. I promise I can spell. Now we need to say if it's equal to 0. So if we put equals 0, equals means it is equal. Equals means is it equal? So we have equal sign is going to set something. Equals is going to ask if that's true. So we're going to use the equals, right? And do remember this. Many years ago, I didn't quite understand this concept, and it caused a lot of problems and a lot of frustration in my program. So just remember, one equal sign is saying yes it is. Two equal sign is saying is it? All right, so we're going to say, so if the horizontal is 0, meaning if you're not moving your D-pad left or right, your analog left or right, your keyboard A or D, if you're not moving it or not pressing it, it's going to be 0. So when it's 0, we're going to say this dot get component animator. Go ahead and pause the video for a second and see if you can figure out what we have to do. Okay, maybe you did, maybe you didn't pause it, but we are back. Dot set bool is running, comma, false. This is literally all we need to set up everything for a running animation and go back to an idle animation. If you have any errors when you run this code, please go back and check. Make sure that this right here perfectly matches this right here. That's probably going to be the biggest source of frustration for anyone who is angry their code is not working. So I'm going to hit play here. Now if I run left, I run right, I run left, I run right. So now when I stop, I don't move. When I'm running, my little frog runs. I'll see you in the next one.